we fully vet the people who are going to live in our community. We're not forced to allow anybody into our community. We get to choose who those people are, and we take great care in choosing who those people are. We are sorry that of the past, what happened with the previous landowner, and we're sorry that we're put in a position as well and having to be the ones that stir the bad memories up again. But at the last meeting, it was talked about that maybe we should look at moving our entrance to Rochester Hills further down Heather Drive Extension. And we did that, just like we've tried to address every issue. We did the traffic study. We've really listened to both the commission and to the residents. What we've come up with here is to move our entrance down approximately 350 feet. We've used an engineering piece of engineering called a whale tail that will force traffic down Heather Drive Extension to McQueen Smith. By moving that further down, it is now twice the distance. It's 0.2 miles from our exit to Smith McQueen Road. It is now twice as long if somebody wanted to take a hairpin left turn and a hairpin right turn and go through Pecan Ridge. It's 0.2 miles from what we're proposing today versus 0.41 miles if someone wanted to go through the neighborhood.
Okay.
We don't expect any of our residents to go through Pecan Ridge. It just doesn't seem logical. That is what we're proposing today and the subdivision. And have any questions for anybody? I'd love to answer them.
We will get to you again in just one moment, but thank you for letting us know. Joel, I just had couple quick things, and then we're going to open it up for everybody. This was zoned for R4, and R4 zoning allows apartments. This was done in 1992, correct? And I'm saying this as simply put, we're not questioning, we're not changing any zoning. In 1992, when the zoning went in force, this particular piece of property was zoned for apartments, correct?
Yes, sir. That was a zoning that was applied, requested by Aronoff Realty and Thames Development when they initially started. The subdivision was known as Prattville East Edition.
Okay.
And as a part of that initial sketch plan and as a part of the initial zoning, this area that is proposed for apartments now was zoned R4.
Okay. And if we reject, which we would, and ladies and gentlemen, when they come before us, generally we have to have a cause to turn something down that's not in order or that's not in line with what they've been asked to do by the city. And so if somebody's done everything that the city has asked them, we would have to have a just cause. But if it was rejected, it's not going to stop apartments from being built there, or could it? If for whatever reason we said no, what would be the outcome? Could they just build onto the end of D Drive and throw some gravel down and run the whole thing through the neighborhood? Is that plausible?
There'd be several different ways we would need to look at this. And I'm trying to stick to what's before you because there's some hypotheticals in what you're asking, but could the apartments be built with some other type of access provided? The answer is yes. Now, what that would be, I'm not sure. We would have to look at that. What we're looking at here is a subdivision sketch plan that was adopted. We're looking at a preliminary plat that matches that and provides additional access to a neighborhood that doesn't have it. So from that aspect is an attractive continuation of the subdivision, an attractive fix for violations that already exist, not due to this project, but Aronoff's failure to complete the subdivision at some point.
Okay.
So to answer your question, apartments could be constructed there with some other access.
But they could just throw some gravel down, build on the D Drive and have access to it and run through the neighborhood. Is that plausible?
No, sir. You're going to have access back to a public street. Now, which
Okay.
public street that is, we would have to look at, and you would have to have, well-constructed access according to city standards.
Okay.
Could they connect to D? Possibly. Could they connect to Heather Drive? Possibly. Could they connect straight out to McQueen Smith Road with a private access? Sure. What we're looking at here is trying to find a way that best divides this property without a duplication of effort.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say that is you have this property to the south of this proposed Heather Drive, which will then, with a private drive, would be orphaned. And so how would you access that property to develop it for housing without building a street?
Okay. So those people have a right to get to their property.
What we're trying to do is find the most efficient way to do that. That's probably your charge as a commission, is to find an orderly pattern of development
Okay.
rather than a haphazard pattern.
Thank you. It is open for the public meeting. If you have any questions, comments, please register with Miss Melissa and come before us now. If you have not registered, please do so. And I know a lot of you have already spoken to us on a couple occasions, but please state your name and your address.
I'm Claire Smith, 845 Heather Drive. I just wanted to essentially say thank you for all the work that has been done. With the zoning 22 years ago, those apartments are going to be built no matter what the neighborhood wants. I think preventing the additional development is important to us, but I'd like to thank Rochester Hills for doing what we asked them to a month ago, and is that moving the road over so it doesn't connect to D Drive. I think that should make us as happy as we can be based on the situation. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Paul Gardner. I spoke at the last meeting. I won't bore you with the background of how I ended up in Prattville. I'd like to ask Joe if the proposal that the developer's making is rerouting this drive, is that agreeable with the city?
I don't want to step in the way of this. We can take that as a rhetorical question and answer it when you get through.
We will discuss that when it comes time to be discussing, but that's certainly something that I'm open to look at, and myself, I'm very open to that idea.
Of course, personally, I question the need for the apartment complex in the first place. Mm-hmm. But I certainly fear bringing the traffic from this complex through our neighborhood, and even rerouting the road, which I think is a good gesture on the part of the developer. There's nothing that's going to prevent someone from turning left and coming back down D Drive. This road that comes out to McQueen Smith, if you're going to make a left turn off of this Heather extension, you're looking up a hill. You have traffic coming over that hill, and it's a barrier to making a left turn. That concerns me, in that rather than taking a chance of getting in an accident, the people want to come down D Drive, which is a narrow road. It wasn't, if people are parking on the road, it'd make it very difficult for traffic to get by on either side. If it can be, and of course they have a right to build the apartment complex, is zoned for that. I just object to bringing roads through our subdivision. And as I said last time, you folks have an awesome responsibility in making this decision. But if I were sitting in your place, I would not do this to your neighborhood. I think it's wrong. It's going to be a safety concern. There's no reason that a neighborhood has been there 20 years, an established neighborhood, that you're going to bring a road through that's going to endanger children playing. going to put excess traffic on our streets. So I ask that you please consider this. Don't do this to our neighborhood. I greatly appreciate your consideration.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name's Dave Dunnigan, and I live on Terra Drive. And I guess my main concern is, and I'll just echo some things that some other people have said, no one can tell anybody what to build on their own land, and I'm not trying to say that. My concern is really safety. You can see there's a couple kids here in the neighborhood, and most of the people in the neighborhood know me because I ride a bicycle through the neighborhood just about every day. I've got 3 kids at home that are 14 and under. There's some kids in the neighborhood that spend a lot of time in my front yard playing football and basketball and baseball and soccer and riding bikes. Invariably, and most of y'all have got kids or have seen kids in neighborhoods, someone's in the street. Someone's going to chase a ball. Someone throws a football over their head and it bounces into the street. Some kid jumps off the curb on his bicycle. My main concern with this whole deal is simply this. It feels like, from a parent perspective, that you folks are going to put my kids and kids in the neighborhood in danger by coming through our neighborhood. I don't have any objection to people building whatever they want to build on their property. My concern as a parent, and quite frankly most people's concern here, is you're going to put our kids in our neighborhood in danger by the tremendous amount of traffic that's going to come through our neighborhood. And I just want y'all to keep in mind the safety of all of the people in the neighborhood, not just the property owners, but the kids that live in that neighborhood, because there's a lot of them.
Yes. Speaking of safety, having the 2 accesses into a neighborhood is a major safety concern, and it's one of, as far as in city planning, it's just not done, and neighborhoods need to have 2 accesses or points of access for safety. If there's a major accident or there's a tornado like we already had come through that area on the front part of the neighborhood, it shuts off the rest of the neighborhood to safety, to response units. And if we are speaking strictly safety, the way it's set up now is a very unsafe way of establishing a neighborhood. And that's why the neighborhood plan, or our city plans, are to have 2 accesses to each neighborhood.
Well, I definitely understand where you're coming from on that, but I'll just respectfully disagree with you on that. Home Place right next to us only has 1 access point at this point. There's a lot of places just have 1 access point. If something happened like a tornado or anything like that, everyone in this whole neighborhood knows you could just drive right through the church parking lot. You'd have to wipe out several 100 feet on either side of that entrance to make it a problem for any safety-related vehicle, whether it be a fire truck or a policeman, to get in the neighborhood. That certainly wouldn't stop it. And I'm not going to argue with y'all. Y'all are all professional people, and I just wanted to voice my concerns about the safety. And the second entrance into a neighborhood just invites crime. It doesn't invite safety. No one wants an extra way for people to come in and then go out another way and no one see them. And so I just want y'all to consider the safety aspect mostly.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Come on up. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thank you. Several meetings ago, when we were discussing this, Dallas Johnson, Chief Johnson, made a comment that he would not oppose if there were a road with a gate that didn't allow traffic to go through, but his equipment could unlock his gate and come through that second entrance if need be. So I'd like to bring that up again in consideration, and it seems like certainly a good alternative.
We will discuss that
Thank you.
at the time. Yes, sir. You may.
If I can address what he just brought up. The fire code, the International Fire Code 2009 edition, Appendix D. Yes, sir. The International Fire Code that we have adopted in the city of Prattville and the state of Alabama addresses the number of entrance and egress points out of a subdivision whether it's a single-family dwelling or a multifamily dwelling. And what we have here is a multifamily dwelling that does in fact comply with a single access point. If they were to be required to have a multiple access point, in the past what we have done in certain conditions is allow that other access point to be restricted from civilian use by a gate with an approved locking mechanism that the fire department has access to. Now, if that were to be of an issue that comes up, I will certainly review that in the plan review process and make suggestions as necessary. But please understand that just because a gated access or restriction point is allowed by code does not necessarily mean that it is warranted in all conditions. And with the drawing that they have before us now, right now, that I do not see where that would serve as as we're looking at this right here, which is not really before us yet. We're talking more about the street right now. Don't hang your hat on that, because that's probably not going to serve the city emergency crews or you as a resident of that neighborhood in any capacity that would be beneficial to you. So it is an option that's available for certain conditions, but it is not a preferred option under most conditions, and I doubt it is in this one as of right now.
I know it's been used in other areas of the city.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just wish it'd be a plan B.
Thank you.
So,
Definitely, it is a plan B.
thank you.
Ms. Blue?
Honorable Lou, I missed your last meeting because the Lord decided I needed the flu.
Yes,
So I dealt with that. But the reason I want to say something to you about this is I like the fact that they've moved that entrance down. It doesn't just come right into D Drive, that maybe part of the people will go the other way. But I'm going to speak as a school board member now, because I want to make sure that you all are going to tell our transportation department that that is not really a safe way for those buses to come out of Heather. With the hill there, it would be fine with the traffic light, they could see that way, but with a school bus and the speed they're traveling at, to try to cross, to go over into Heather to pick students up, or even if they were going to turn left, that could be dangerous. And I'm very concerned about that from seeing this, because
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think that is a real concern, would be a real concern of the Board of Education. So I just want to make sure you all are going to talk to them about this so that we won't have a problem there. That's
Okay.
my concern.
Yes, ma'am.
I have, since I'm the last house on D Drive, I have some other concerns there. I'd like a speed bump, so when they come over onto our street, they'd slow down for all of us old folks walking, but you didn't ask me what I wanted.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Blue. Are there any other questions, comments? Anybody else wish to address the Planning Commission at this time? All right. I will close the public hearing. Now, that just means that the public hearing is closed, and everybody keep your seat, and we are going to open this up for discussion. We need to read it in at this time? Got to get it read in. Would you read it in for me? Would you mind?
Resolution, thank you. Resolution preliminary plat Rochester Hills, November 20, 2014. Whereas Rochester Hills LLP is the owner of Rochester Hills, and whereas the proposed development is located inside the city limits off Heather Drive, and whereas a public hearing for the proposed subdivision was heard on November 20, 2014, and whereas the city department heads have reviewed and commented on the proposed development, now therefore be it resolved that the City of Prattville Planning Commission hereby approves the submitted preliminary plat of Rochester Hills. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you, sir. Now, discussion. Yes, sir, Mr. Bowles. I did not see your hand.
All right, thank you. I've still got several concerns with this whole deal. Now, I personally have lived back on Silver Creek Circle for right at 20 years. My office is up Cosford Road. 7 in the morning, I will not go out through McQueen Smith, even though it's a shorter route, because the traffic coming from the Walmart side of town, where Aronoff did all that development, which is mainly military, is flooding that street and you can't cross. At 5 o'clock, when it's time to go home, I won't go back down McQueen Smith because the traffic is backed up past YMCA. So my concern is, how in the world are we going to take 90 units, which would be 180 cars, and get them out of that parking lot at 7 in the morning when it's time to go to work, with all the traffic coming across the street with no red light? And then add in school buses. Mm-hmm. As Ms. Blue said, which I do like the turn down, but the problem with that creates another monster, is your school bus cannot get back around. It's going to have to go out by Heather, which if they have to go across the street and pick up kids, they will sit there for 20 minutes and have cars backed up for a mile. Why can't we take this traffic and dump it out on Cosford Road and keep it from, put one entrance, because everybody keeps saying, hey, we need 2 entrances to a neighborhood, right? We need 2 entrances to this neighborhood, one on Cosford Road and one on McQueen Smith. And that would take a lot of this pressure off of McQueen Smith. McQueen Smith cannot handle this much pressure.
The traffic study does.
Well, that's fine, but in the traffic study, they only said 90 cars. Mm-hmm. There's no way it's going to be 90 cars if it's 90 units. They're going to have people living 2 people per unit, which means more than likely 2 cars per unit, which means it's 180 cars, not 90. So I would personally feel better if the city could do a traffic study on 180 cars, because I don't want these guys having to fork out more money for another traffic study, and have them go ahead and connect it to Cosford Road and make 2 entrances in and out of this new subdivision. There again, if there's a fire or something for this in these apartments, a fire truck's not going to be able to go down to the second entrance and get in. If there's a tornado like everybody keeps talking about, and it wipes out the tire store, and we can't get into that entrance, and the departments are damaged, you can't take a fire truck all the way around and make it loop back up the way it's designed. We would need that second entrance between coming in on Cosford Road to make for safety factors. It makes a lot of sense to pull that traffic onto Cosford Road versus let them come out both streets, and then we would have less congestion on McQueen Smith.
You do have other potential development going all the way out to where the office complex is, to where where Cleveland and Colley has their office complex back to D Drive. As Joel stated a little while ago, then you orphan those individuals that have that property.
No, I'm not saying kill the drive. I'm not saying that at all.
Okay.
I'm saying make them do both drives. Have them connect into Cosford Road and to Heather.
Okay.
With the way they have it designed with that little loop right there, but also have a ingress egress onto Cosford Road. And that would take a lot of pressure off of McQueen Smith and off of Heather, because most of these people, if they're going to Montgomery, they're going to go down Cosford Road if they're going to work in Montgomery. They're not going to hit McQueen Smith. The school buses could come out a lot easier on Cosford Road than they can on McQueen Smith, because McQueen Smith is a absolute nightmare.
Are you wanting to open up the Cosford Road entrance just to the apartment complex, or
Yes.
the entire neighborhood?
I would say just to the apartment complex. And that way we would discourage the people in the neighborhood from coming out there, but encourage the people in the apartments using that route instead of through the neighborhood and coming into McQueen Smith and causing all kind of problems, which is going to happen if we let this go through with just one entrance.
Comments? Yeah, anyone else? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mayor. Go ahead.
Mayor?
Thank you. And I do apologize. I missed the last couple of meetings. First one was the economic development project I was working on. The second one I was out of state for the city. But I think we all have sort of realized that this saga started back in '92. Then it evolved in '97. In April of this year, it started evolving again. I think there was a committee set up, and that got dissolved because some of the plans were pulled, and we're back at it again. And I've been spending quite a bit of time up in that area, and both in the neighborhood on McQueen Smith Road, right there, I guess you call it Heather Drive, right there beside Russell's, and Applebee's parking lot. I guess I'm pretty fortunate nobody's called in a stalker in that area. But one of the things I've sort of picked up on while I have been on this commission is that planning is very crucial. I don't forgot the name of the street. Greencrest. Perfectly straight, as pretty as it could be. City has a lot of problems on there, speeders, and it's just really unbelievable. If you look at this from a 40,000 foot object level, there's a lot of other challenges in this same area that is sort of being created because of, in my opinion, not having the orderly patterns that we really need when we come to this planning. Heather Drive, if that's the name of it, right there beside beside Russell, does not have a traffic light. If you go west, I'm going to make up, say, 100 feet, 100 yards, you have a traffic light that is coming out of two parking lots. One is coming out of Walmart parking lot, the other one's coming out of the old Office Depot. If there had been the proper alignments of all this at that point in time, a lot of these discussions probably would not even be made. I do agree with some of your comments, Councilor Bowles. I don't think that the developer should be having to hold the full burden on a lot of these, because some of the challenges we have started back way before you and I, or probably most of everybody here, got on this commission. Because I think if that traffic light had been lined up properly on McQueen, Smith, and Heather, then it would be a lot easier solution. What because what our roles are up here, in my opinion, we're actually here to look out for the betterment of our citizens. Also look out for the betterment of the businesses that are here or trying to get here, but then also, especially the elected ones here, to look out for the betterment of this community, municipality of the city of Prattville. And right now, if you look at McQueen Smith Road, the way that light and that intersection has been, I don't think anybody's really, I don't know what happened there.
May I ask? Yes. Mayor, when you're talking about McQueen Smith and Heather, you're referring actually to Cobbs Ford Road and the stub out street by Russell, is that correct?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that correction there. Thank you for that correction there. Yes, right there by Russell at Cobbs Ford, and it's called Heather. I really would like for us to step back, because like I say, this started in 92, 97, and in April of this year. Let's pull together and see if there is a bigger and better plan. And I'm not saying, there's going to be a lot of partnerships going on here, because the overall 40,000 foot view, I think, is what we really ought to be looking at instead of the 400 foot view. My comments on that, because right now I'm really not ready to vote on this today.
Yes. Anyone else?
One thing we need to keep in mind, Old Farm Lane is being 5 lane. Once it's open, it's going to take some of this traffic off. I'm not saying how much, but it's going to help us in that respect. But it is McQueen Smith has got a problem. A lot of cars travel that road. And I think I would really be for it coming out another way to Cobbs Ford Road from this subdivision. That would be beneficial, I think.
Joel, are you ready or will you approach the microphone? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you down there. I did not even know you were there. I apologize,
Thank
Gene.
you for the compliment. Anything that's going to put more traffic on Cobbs Ford Road is going to be the same if you put them here, if you put them there. It's a nightmare already. So what difference does it make if you put them on Sheila or Cobbs Ford Road first? You're still going to all line up in one pot. It's going to be the same thing when you put more traffic from the other streets getting 5 lanes. Well, we got a nightmare, and it's going to make it a heck of a nightmare. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
I'd like to just to make a comment back on that is that, well, if you do have a traffic light, and, a lot of times, my understanding, sometimes you put a traffic light or intersection, sometimes you just have a more of a accident count go up on that. But I think especially in a case like this, though, if you could realign that traffic light further east toward Heather, toward McQueen, toward Russell, and line all that up, and it would not be a small project. But if you could realign all that, then to me would be a lot more safety, because if you do have more residents coming in there, and I've heard of even senior apartments coming in potentially at some shape, form, or fashion, so you need to be thinking about that. Also, as far as I'm concerned, I would also like to see some conductivity that would induce walking. Now, I've always been pushing, trying to be a little bit healthy. And if you could, because if we're going to have a small community right here, a lot of your shopping is right over in the Walmart parking lot area, or we're enticing people to, buy in East Prattville. So a lot of this traffic, some shape, form, or fashion, is going to end up on Cobb's Ford, no matter what. No matter what. So the traffic light, I think, would be a lot safer there. And then also the school buses that were talked about, it's going to be very difficult for them coming up out of that way. And, of course, garbage will probably be a privatized group on that, won't it? To service this apartment complex?
Yes, sir, I'm sure.
Okay,
that would be the
but then
case.
you do have large equipment on that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's some of that large equipment we need to be thinking about also.
Yes, sir, Mr. Bowles.
All right, the council in 2 meetings ago spent $70,000, if I'm not mistaken, to realign all the lights from the, what's that street, Mayor? All the way to the interstate. By PrimeEd. Or that actually Shady Oak. From Shady Oak all the way down, we're buying a computer system that will help get the traffic flow going straight and keep the traffic flow in Cobb's Ford Road running properly. Now, I have seen in other communities where they had a similar situation and put a light, keep the light where it is for Walmart, but have it working in conjunction with the light coming out of Cobb's Ford, right there of Heather. So in other words, if it turns red, it gives everybody the turn for Walmart. It would also give the people the right to turn going towards town, and they would stop at the red light. And I mean, there's a lot of different things we could do if we have time to study this. We need a little bit more time. We need our engineering department to work on this and make this a #1 conjunction, because the more time we take from them, they're losing money, which is it's not fair to those guys. But at the same time, it's not fair to all of y'all to crowd the neighborhood and make it where it's dangerous on Cobb's Ford Road. So if we could, I would like to hold this for another month, get Robbie to make him and sit down with the engineering firm and let's figure this thing out. But personally, the only way I see it working is coming out on Cobb's Ford Road and McQueen Smith. And that hopefully would bring a lot of pressure off of both, take all the pressure instead of putting it on one road, put both pressure on both roads, is what I'm asking. And hopefully that would help some of this congestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from Mr. Duke? We had a couple of questions that they have brought up that would like to be clarified. Now, holding it, we have held it for a couple of months, and let's review our options on that and the other comments that have been made.
Well, let's just start with the one that was asked during the public hearing, and I'll try to answer that.
That will be fine.
Just trying to not lengthen your public hearing. As far as what is proposed as far moving the driveway, staff has looked at a couple of those. They requested that we look at a couple of those. We did not forward those to you because we weren't sure whether they were going to actually propose them formally. But the review of those driveway shifts, we're good with that. One of those was the one that's presented here, and that is obviously it would be better to have driveways line up, but this is if this is something that is acceptable to the commission, to the developer, we're satisfied with that. So apologize. That was a long answer to a simple question.
Yes, what on?
Since we've been here before, I hesitate to go back, but I think it's necessary since each time this comes up, it's really kind of starting over. You'll recall that we had a second public hearing on this matter. It's actually the third public hearing. The first time this matter was dispensed with because it failed to receive enough votes. The second public hearing was necessitated by the Montgomery Advertiser and their mistake in how they ran.
I can't hear you, Joe. I'm really supposed to back can't hear you.
I'll speak up, Mr. Hall. Thank you.
I turned 80 Sunday, so I got an excuse. Hello?
Hi. Thank you. The reason you're having a second public hearing is because we had a mistake in the advertisement in the Advertiser. So again, you're back here today, and technically this counts as basically the first hearing. So to answer your question, you have basically 30 days from the time of the hearing to act on this preliminary plat request. So you could hold it again without any real issue. I would feel better since we've had a public hearing and there could be some legal question that if you decide to hold it, that you get the consent of the developer to do that. I'm not sure. I don't think that would be difficult to get. That's simply just asking if they consent standing here at this podium. That is consent. I don't necessarily want to get in the way of your discussion. I know that some of what's been discussed by Mr. Bowles and the mayor is just that. It's a discussion. I'll be glad to talk about the technical aspects of this, but I think everybody is aware of that. Technically, what is presented to you today meets your regulations. From a technical standpoint, the roadway connection meets a sketch plan that's been approved by this body. The issues about going back out to Cosford Road were really discussed in 1997. It was determined that since this neighborhood essentially shrunk from what it was intended to be originally, which was larger and have extensions to the south, that Cosford Road was not necessarily a necessity to make this neighborhood work. I'll give you an example. Heather Drive, as it's constructed today, if you were to drive down it coming from Terra Drive, you would go, this is an extremely wide road. Why is it an extremely wide road that terminates here about a quarter mile from where it starts? The reason it was built at that width is originally it was conceived to be a road that would go further south into the Sanford property, and it obviously did not, with changes that took place in development. So those plans evolve over time and adjustments are made. If you're going to take additional traffic back to Cosford Road, I think there's probably a need to look at impact on Cosford Road, because I think that's where you have the greater traffic problem than McLean Smith. But that is certainly an option. It is certainly something that you need to look at. Again, it was looked at pretty well in 97. And Mr. Bowles, I just want to, the traffic study was done was not limiting the number of cars it was not really addressing the total number of cars per day. It was addressing peak hours, which would be AM and PM. And you're going to have less than the total number of folks in the complex. But that study was looking at just peak hours and not the total. But I'd be glad to answer any questions at this point. I think we've covered this quite a bit, and I don't think there's much more I can tell you about the technical side of this subdivision.
Since we have held this several times, and we would have to request from them.
Technically, I believe that you're safe because this is the official public hearing, but I would ask that if you're going to hold it, that you get their consent to do that. Your options, if they don't consent, or if you're still hesitant about approving, is to deny it. Because frankly, it's your only option after that. if you hold it without their consent, then they have the ability to request its approval per state law without your acting on it. In fact, they're essentially approved without your action. If you
After the 30 days.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. So as long as we meet again within 30 days of today's date, by either moving the next meeting or by meeting, all we can ask them to.
And I'm telling you that, and I'm not trying to put words in their mouth, and certainly not trying to speak for them, but for you to deny it starts the process over again. It is costly to them, time-wise.
Mm-hmm.
So holding it is probably a better option for everybody.
Okay.
But you certainly need to ask.
Is there any other questions? Any other comments? Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Hall.
Mr. Duke, is there going to be any more traffic coming from subdivisions on the road on out down to 31? It goes by the Y out there and all of that road?
You're talking about McQueen Smith?
Yes.
Yes, sir. What you're going to end up with eventually, you already have sketch plans that show 2 access points to the Home Place development. Gentleman earlier mentioned that Home Place has 1 access. Yes, it does, but that's temporary. I mean, as Home Place builds out, just like this subdivision, eventually there will be a secondary access.
Okay, now there's going to be increasing traffic on that. All that traffic's not going to go south. You got traffic going. Are we going to stop them from that because of traffic on Sheila Boulevard? We want to stop this on Sheila Boulevard now. Or are we going to stop them from putting any more traffic on Sheila Boulevard? I'm just making a comment.
Yes, sir.
Maybe you think it may be stupid, but I'm saying it. Because you put more traffic. Traffic goes in everything we do with traffic. You put another store out there, it's more traffic. And we wore this thing out. We either need to kill it now and start over a year from now, or whatever, or let them have it now. I don't see how another 30 days is going to help.
Yes, sir.
If I might,
Yes, sir.
I would, we've had one commission or committee that was pulled together for this similar type project that was dissolved. I would actually like to talk with the developer here, see if they would entertain the idea of pulling a committee back together again, sitting back down and look at the overall view of this. Because as I said before, this isn't, we need to be looking at it from the 40,000 foot level and not just the 400 foot level.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Mr. Bowles.
Okay, I would encourage Mr. Duke and everybody sitting on this board to be, what's the street where that it'll tie into, that Heather will tie into? What's that street name?
That's Seasons Drive.
Seasons Drive at 7:30 tomorrow morning and try to get out. And then I encourage everybody else on this board and Mr. Duke to be back at 5:20 and try to get back in. And you'll see what these people are complaining about and why it's so important to get it to go out on Gosford also. Thank you.
You're welcome. Can you approach the podium? Do you mind? It appears several.
My name is Kevin Buckner.
Hey,
I'm
Kevin.
with Brad Smith. What I'm hearing the mayor and Commissioner Councilman Bowles ask is us to delay this another 30 days. And I appreciate that you want to do what's best for the citizens of your city. We do too. We also feel that this is our 3rd time here. It may be our 1st reading, but we've had an opportunity to do what the city's asked us to do originally, show them another plan. We're here another time, and all of a sudden, from a developer standpoint, we're hearing, well, let's just look at this one more time. I really have to think about it. I know, we've had conversations, Councilman. You want to do the right thing, but we've been in a subcommittee before. From my standpoint, I'm not sure that we'll ever get your support on it. We'd like it. So if we could just have a few moments, if we could table this, let me talk to Brad, let me talk to our engineer, because we're not sure that there is an exit point, a good exit point coming out of Cobb's Ford that makes financial sense for anybody. It's a mess, and I agree with the city on it. But I'm not sure another 30 days gets that resolved. But I'm not an engineer. I'd love to talk to our engineer about it and see what his thoughts are. And if we could just, it's like Shark Tank. If I could just have another 5 minutes to phone him.
Okay. Yeah, either that or can we move to the next agenda item and come back and revisit it in a few minutes? Or do you want to take a recess? Go ahead.
Hey,
Point of order, I guess.
Yes, sir. You can, certainly don't want to table it because then somebody's got to bring it up off the table. But
Right.
you can suspend action on it at the moment and move to your next item. You have a motion on the table. Somebody make a motion to hold it to the end of the agenda. That would be perfect. That way it's clearly what's supposed to happen.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, there's a motion to hold it to the end of the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, signify by right hand. Opposed, like sign. I can't see, so I know you record. All right, let's move to the next item. Next item is also a public hearing. Is that correct? Am I looking at that right? It is the Laney property, Plat 1, the northeast corner of Highway 14 and Old Ridge Road. Is someone here to address that item?
We held it till the end of the meeting, so they have time to discuss. We'll vote on it at the end. We're going to vote on it at the end of the meeting, so they have time to meet with with them and talk about it. So we're giving a few minutes to discuss. Okay.
All right, thank you for your service. Okay, Mr. Gillen, what we got?
Yes, what I have here today is a preliminary and final plat approval of the Laney property, plat number 1. And what we have shown here is the property located just east of Old Ridge Road, north of Alabama Highway 14, south of Hollybrook, and west of the commercial area that's right there at the intersection of I-65 and 14. Now, the city has particular agreements with Mr. Laney to provide right-of-way for the construction of this particular site here along Lewis High. And part of those obligations are to, present that and dedicate those particular items to the city so that particular agreements can be taken care of. Our plat here today is strictly to provide the location of that right-of-way so that this process, that we can continue through with it.
Okay.
And the city is currently in the process of preparing construction plans on the roadway. And I'm ready to answer any particular questions you may have.
Does anybody have a question? Go ahead.
There's a stub street, or I guess a street that ends in a cul-de-sac currently over to the east of this.
That's
Is
correct.
that lined up with that?
That's correct. This street is located here, and this is set up to make a continuation of that street. And we'll look at back road.
Okay. This is a public hearing regarding this matter. Would anybody like to come and address?
My name is John Lee Finnegan. I live at 211 Deer Trace. When preliminary plats are approved, is that set in stone? What I mean, if this is approved, can they come back and then they can show a different plan to each of this, because there's two parts. The lower one is, of course, Long Lewis, and then there's those two big ones. What I'm trying to get an idea of whether those are going to be divided up or not. I have no idea with a preliminary plat.
Go ahead, if you want to address them.
What I would expect is, again, the process here is to define the roadway to where the road's going to be constructed, and I would expect the parcel 1 and 2 that are corrected from this plat to, in the future, be subdivided up into some type of commercial or residential type development. And yes, there would be other platting processes to take care of those particular areas, unless one group came in and decided to build a whole complex here of that nature. But before that would happen, there's some rezonings and things that would have to take place first, because the back half of the property is zoned
Farm?
agricultural. I'm not sure
Okay.
terminology. And the front half here is zoned B1 or B2.
B1 or
So
B2.
we'll be back here again when that happens, for sure.
But if the preliminary plat then is approved, then there's no way to stop anything if they go along, just like you were saying with Rochester Hills, if they do everything
Well,
the city
if
says.
they can, right now it's zoned agricultural, they can certainly plow all they want to do, but if they want to change from farm and agricultural FAR to business,
B2 or R4
correct,
or
then
whatever.
they would have to request that.
Okay, but the preliminary plat, what I'm trying to say is that starts the ball rolling.
That starts the ball rolling as far as building the road, but the road would be put there.
Okay,
And then once the road is there, it's going to be going through B1 or B2, wherever Long Lewis is, and then the rest of it is agricultural.
except
At
the
this
other one.
time,
That
except
big
for
one
that.
isn't. That big one isn't.
Okay, and then
The one at the top is the FAR.
okay, and then the big one would certainly, if they wanted to subdivide that, then they would have to come before us.
Okay, and would they have to do like roadways and stuff like that also? That would have to be approved.
That would have to be approved. That is correct.
Okay, so the preliminary plat is the beginning of the ball rolling.
That's the beginning of developing that property. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns from anyone? Yes, sir. Come on and sign in and come talk to us.
Thank you. I'm David Smith. I live at 116 Ashton Oak Court in the subdivision here. Is this basically just a line drawing saying we're going to put a road here and it's going to connect to this point? Or is there any features to this road that's going to be changed after this is hooked in?
We're going to, I believe what we're doing right now is there's a preliminary plat, and then the final plat is going to be right afterwards. I would imagine they're going to want to start building the road within, it depends on if it rains or not in January, but they were going to
What
build
I'm
it.
asking is that I assume this will be a stop sign here rather than some kind of
It's going to be a traffic light.
a what, sir?
Is it traffic light? Is that correct, Joel?
Yes, sir. I'm not sure if Mr. Gillen mentioned this, that point on 14, that intersection corresponds with where old farm lane is being realigned. So that will basically be where the new road is on the south side of 14 will line up.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm pointing the wrong place, I think.
You're talking about?
I'm talking about up here.
Yes, sir. That would line up basically with Riverton Drive.
Right, but will it just, I understood that there's a possibility there'd be a traffic circle there maybe.
The final design on the roadway is still being worked out, but the right-of-way itself, the area where the road will exist, will not change. It may change a little significantly, but add a little more right-of-way to there to the north, but probably not.
Well, will that,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
that would just be a stop sign up there though, right?
The final design is looking at kind of a full movement intersection where traffic circle or something like that, where traffic flows efficiently through there instead of a stop sign. Stop sign.
Well, I mean, I'm seeing the same things that they're talking about as far as traffic coming into a subdivision. And I can just imagine somebody coming from the shopping areas, and first time they're going to end up down in the subdivision rather than wherever they wanted to go,
That's right. I can assure you that what we are looking at there is well designed so that it is apparent that you follow the roadway to the north and not to the subdivision. Your subdivision access will not be the apparent main direction.
Well, but you see how this appears, that
Yes,
it's
sir.
going directly across into the subdivision.
Yes, sir. Where the actual road right-of-ways line up will always look like a nice, clean intersection. But
Well,
the
that's what-
alignment of the road and the side of that will be, that's really what we're looking at.
Well, like I said, it's a line drawing, just saying this is what we want as a road, but it may turn out to be circles and
Right.
fishtails and
But-
whatever else.
Yes, sir.
I would
You go.
frankly prefer
Right.
that we had all of those presented at the same time, but the landowner is requesting a plat.
Wants his road shown, yeah.
Well, like his plat shown so that he
No.
can meet his obligation under the agreement to dedicate that right of way to the city.
That's all I say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Could you read it in for us? Is it time to read it in? I'm watching it. You read that number.
Resolution preliminary plat, Laney property, plat 1, December 18, 2014, whereas Jim Laney is owner and developer of Laney property, and whereas the proposed development is located inside the city limits at Highway 14 East Knoll Ridge Road at the northeast corner, and whereas the sketch plan for the proposed development was approved with contingencies on August 21st, 2008, and whereas a public hearing for the proposed development was heard on December 18, 2014, and whereas the city department heads have reviewed and commented on the proposed development, and now therefore be it resolved that the City of Prattville Planning Commission hereby gives its favorable review of the submitted preliminary plat of Laney property, plat 1. I so move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Discussion? Okay. Thank you. Any discussion? All right. All right, Joel? No, don't mind a bit.
Mr. Gillen covered most everything that needs to be discussed here, except that you need to be aware that, and I may have mentioned it during the public hearing, this is part of a development agreement that was signed, economic development agreement that was signed between the city, the county, local car dealership, and city water board, and the property owner, the Laney family. The primary reason for the plat is to delineate the right-of-way that the Laney family is giving to their part of the development agreement. As Ms. Finnegan mentioned, there are two large lots here. You can expect that those will be divided up later, just like we find with every commercial property we do. Eventually, those lots get divided back up. They'll come back before you each time for your consideration, and infrastructure that has to be built there would have to come back and have a public hearing. It was also mentioned that this is a line here about a third of the property, a third of the way into the property from 14 is the only portion of it that is zoned for business. The rest of it is FAR. That would be the areas closer to the residential areas. Those are FAR. That would require some rezoning before it could be developed at any density. So staff recommends approval of both this preliminary plat and the final plat. That's the next item on your agenda. Thank you.
Any questions? Other questions? Y'all ready to vote on it? Call for a question? Do we only have to have? We got 6. All in favor? Raise your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Mayor, would you read in the final plat for me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Resolution final plat, Laney property, plat 1, December 18th, 2014. Whereas Jim Laney is the owner and developer of Laney property, whereas the proposed development is located inside the city limits at Highway 14 East and Old Ridge Road at the northeast corner. And whereas a sketch plan for the proposed development was approved with contingencies on August 21st, 2008. And whereas a preliminary plat for proposed development was approved on December 18th, 2014. Whereas the city department heads have reviewed and commented on the proposed development. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Prattville Planning Commission hereby gives its favorable review of the submitted final plat of Laney Property Plat 1. Mr. President, I so move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second motion.
Thank you, sir. Need for discussion? All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Let's move on. We have another public hearing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We have a public, Guthrie, how are you, sir? Good to see you, sir. It is item number 4, preliminary plat, EEDA LTD, plat 1 at 136 and 138 West Main Street. Mr. Guthrie, what do you have for us, sir?
This is a plat that will divide 2 commercial properties downtown. I believe it's 136 and 138 West Main Street. Uncle Mick's is the one on the east, and I forget what then you got a commercial on that. We go down a party line. You have the building plans if anybody needs to see it, but we go down a party wall to divide it, and Mickey Thompson is here in case there's some questions you need to ask about why and where forth and so forth. We just surveyed it and platted it. So we appreciate your preliminary and final approval.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Jeffcoat?
Mr. Thompson is the owner of both of these.
It's in a family trust.
Is this It is going to be a public hearing. We are about to launch into it. All right, thank you, Mr. Jeffcoat. This is a public hearing. We just kind of like to find out what's going on and who the petitioner is and all the information about it. Is there anybody that want to comment on this? For, against, any questions? Any questions? Okay, I want to close the public hearing. Would let's see. I'll read it down. Would you like to read it in for me? Go, thank you. Bobby, go ahead.
Resolution preliminary plat EEDA LTD Plat 1, December the 18th, 2014. Whereas EEDA LTD is the owner of the development of EEDA LTD Plat 1, and whereas the proposed development is located inside the city limits at 136 and 138 East Main Street. And whereas a public hearing for the proposed development was heard on December the 18th, 2014, and whereas the city department heads have reviewed and commented on the proposed development. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Prattville Planning Commission hereby gives its favorable review of the submitted preliminary plat of EEDA LTD Plat Number 1. I so move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and that is West Main Street, if you correct that, please. Ms. Morgan,
say?
you said east, but that's okay. Is there a second?
Wait a second.
All right. Discussion? Any questions for Uncle Mickey? Or, yes, sir. Go ahead.
What is EEDA?
What stand for?
Yes.
Yule Dane Now.
All right.
My niece and nephew, family trust.
Thank you.
Any questions? For Mr. Jeffcoat or anything? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Just what are we doing here again on this particular?
We're taking an existing structure that had a party wall already, about 18 or 20 inch brick party wall, firewall, and going down the center of it and subdividing it into 2 parcels.
Okay.
In the old days, that did that, all the time. Everything had a party wall back downtown in the old days. You don't remember that? You're too young to remember that.
Well, I'm only 80, so, Really? Okay.
Yeah,
all right, that's what
now the legal reasons are, he's told y'all as much as he told me, he wants it done and he needs it done for his family trust, but anything further you'd have to get from Mr. Thompson.
We good with it. Any questions for, well, let's vote on it. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. All right, thank you.
Got both preliminary and final in.
We gotta read that in too, don't we? Let's see, resolution, final plat, EDA, LTD, plat 1.
I will read it.
You wanna read, let me read it? Go ahead, thank you.
Final plat EEDA LTD plat 1 December 18, 2014. Whereas EEDA LTD is the owner and developer of EDA LTD plat 1, and whereas the proposed development is located inside the city limits at 136 and 138 West Main Street, and whereas the preliminary plat for the proposed development was approved on December 18, 2014, and whereas the city department heads have reviewed and commented on the proposed development. Now therefore be resolved that the City of Prattville Planning Commission hereby gives a favorable review of the submitted final plat of EEDA LTD plat 1. Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt this resolution.
Thank you. Is there a second? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Let's move on to Glenbrook subdivision, plat 3C. Are they ready to go? Mr. Bowles, will you read that in for us, please?
Whereas Stonemark Builders is developer of Glenbrook subdivision, plat 3, and whereas the proposed development is located inside the city limits of Pendlebrook Drive and Barclay Street, and whereas preliminary plat of the proposed development was approved on August 15, 2013, and whereas the city department heads have reviewed and commented on the proposed development. Now therefore be resolved by the City of Prattville Planning Commission hereby gives its favorable review to submit final plat to Glenbrook subdivision, plat C. I so move.
Thank you. And there's a motion and a second. All right. Mr. Rice, you want to tell us what you got?
As usual, y'all are fairly used to my end of this. This is the final plat for the final phase of Glenbrook Phase 3. It's 39 lots on approximately 15 acres. I believe you have before you a letter from me outlining the upcoming construction process and the fact that the construction is not 100% complete, but we do expect that to be attained before the next Planning Commission meeting. So we are asking for final plat approval with the understanding that should it be recorded prior to 100% substantial completion, that we are willing to bond anything that's left.
Thank you. Mr. Duke?
Sir, I have to concur with Mr. Rice that they are not complete. And I apologize, in your packet there's not the letter, but it's standard letter. It asks for approval contingent upon a bond being posted to cover improvements that are incomplete. So if you're asking me if it's ready to be platted, by your rules it's not, but also by your rules you're allowed to approve it with a bond being posted. We've done that before with Stone Martin and had no incident, so I would say that there's nothing to say that you could not do that.
Do we need to amend this?
Oh yes, sir. If you approve it contingent upon a bond, you certainly need to amend the motion.
Okay. Discussion? Go ahead, Mr. Ball.
I'd like to amend it to say that it would have to have a bond on it before approval is signed. Is that right, Mr. Duke?
Is there a second? Second. All right, motion's made and second. In favor of the amend, raise your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Is there any further discussion on this matter? All in favor of the amended resolution, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. All right. Thank you. Number 7. I don't have anything under number 7. Final plat, oh, where is my number 7? I just turned the wrong section. I know we're getting a lot of folks to read. Would you mind reading one more time, Mr. Bowles? Thank you.
Whereas DHS Holding 4 Incorporated and Williams Murphy Trust are the owners of property presented at Home Place South, Plot 1, and whereas the proposed development is located in the city of Prattville at McQueen Smith Road and Old Quarters Road, and whereas the intentional sketch plan was approved on August 19, 2004, 2. A revised sketch plan was approved on April 21, 2005. 3. A revised sketch plan was approved on April 19, 2007. 4. A revised sketch plan was approved on November 17, 2011. 5. A preliminary plat for the proposed development was approved on May 17, 2012. And whereas the required city development departments have reviewed and commented on proposed final plat, now therefore be resolved that the City of Prattville Planning Commission hereby approves and submits final plat for Home Place South, Plat 1. I so move.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. All right. You can record whichever one you want to. Discussion? What we got? Come on up here and talk to us. Tell us who you are.
Yes, I'm Watson Brown. I represent the owner, David Stock Development, who owns McQueen Partners LLC.
Okay.
We just simply the project is 100% complete, and is all the buildings have been CO'd, temporary CO, and we're requesting that we can dedicate both of the roads that have been built, Flint Williams Avenue and Old Quarters Road. They are all complete, with the exception on Old Quarters. We do not have a bond released yet from the ALDOT. Mm-hmm. And that's to be re-inspected in the first 2 weeks of January.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Duke.
Sir, we certainly concur with Mr. Brown's statements. If you recall, this is on the southern end of the Home Place development. It corresponds with the Villas at Home Place Apartments. With this plat, there were 2 short segments of public street that needed to be built, and both of those are complete and ready for acceptance. They, of course, will go under a 2-year maintenance period, just like everything else that gets approved. So be glad to answer any questions. So this one is ready for your approval.
Thank you. Discussion? Questions? All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. All right, miscellaneous items. Do you want to go there, or you want to go back to them? Let's go back to them. All right, come on up and let's talk. Thank you, sir.
There was so much conversation about...
Now, they're going to request that if you can maybe hold the microphone. But
there was a lot of conversation about a Cobbs Ford entrance, and I was a little confused when we were talking out in the hall. Councilman Bowles or the mayor, can you explain to me once again? I know you can't tell me exactly what you have in mind, but what's your thought process? Is it a road that extends from Cobbs Ford down to Heather Drive?
No, sir. Go ahead.
No, sir. What I'm saying is what we would, and I'm speaking for the mayor without speaking for the mayor, we would like to see it go into the apartment complex, not touching Heather. So you would have
that would give our residents another
2 entrances in and out of that place without them all having to come out into Heather.
What happens if that happens, and then people that would have access, non-Rochester Hill residents, would they have access coming through that entranceway through our,
The way y'all have it
apartment
designed, it
complex?
would be really, really hard for them to get through there, go through the apartment complex and get into the neighborhood the way y'all are having it designed. I don't see that being a big issue.
Okay.
Would you point out on this map just exactly where the apartment complex is going to be?
I don't know if you can see the yellow area and
No,
outline.
let him.
Can you?
Okay. Now we're talking about a street from that apartment complex into College Ford Road. Okay. Right. And that would dead end in the apartment complex.
That's what Mr. Balls wants to do.
And they're leaving one way in, one way back out, a circle like a circle, not a cul-de-sac, but a loop.
No, they want to. No.
That was not my thought process, which there again, I'm not an expert on this. You know, I've been out in that area, and I've seen some of the preliminary plans from the 97 version and all that other. You know, my thoughts, and strictly this is coming from an amateur end of it, is actually go ahead and have what you have there on the map, but then also add another leg that goes all the way up to where, right beside Russell, and try to find out what's the feasibility of relocating that traffic light to right there, Heather at Russell, Dewitt Center.
Yeah.
Which would put it in front of Applebee's Road.
Yes, there's a drive.
Basically lining up into their parking.
Yes, that's where it'd be. It'd take a lot of logistics. It'd take a lot of partnerships, but you would, you could potentially cut off the drive that's already there at that traffic light on McQueen, on Cobb's Ford, and flip. You'd have to have some land swaps. I mean, it would be as I mentioned earlier, it'd be a big project, but I think that's something that we probably ought to look at, because that area right there is, the way it has evolved, there's no real orderly pattern involved in it.
But again, Mr. Mayor, are you saying that then that extension would not end into the apartment complex, but it would end into the Heather Drive extension?
Yes. Right. One other set of plans I saw before, Heather actually went beside Russell, and somebody helped me, I think the road that continued to McQueen Smith was Kathy. It's Kathy. So, I mean, it's sort of a hybrid of what was back in 97 with additional work up there at Cobb's Ford. I mean, the thing is, are we going to pretty much piecemeal it, or are we really going to try to get it right?
Would the commission be in favor of approving the plan? For example, the Heather Drive extension would be built in your thought process. The question is whether this road extension can be built, landing donated, traffic lights being moved. But it doesn't really change our plan except for adding an additional road at a future date. Is there a possibility that we could be in agreement to allow the plan to go through take the necessary time to study the additional road and how that's going to get funded?
I would like to have a committee pulled together. I would like to sit on that committee,
okay,
and with whomever,
Mm-hmm.
and really look at that before any further steps are made. As I said before, I think we need to look at it for the betterment of all, and not penalizing you guys, because some of this that's out there now, it is what it is. It was. I don't think it's, in my book, it's not described as an orderly pattern.
Is there one last question, is there a possibility, I know everybody's time is valuable, is there a possibility that we could have a short meeting, not a full committee meeting while we're here after this meeting, and just so we have some ideas of what you guys are thinking about, and so we have next steps? I know or is it something that needs to wait?
That's
There again,
That's
a
possible.
committee has not been
Yeah.
formed.
We
I'm
haven't
available.
formed one. We will form one if that's our option. And I certainly would be open to sit here and talk to you for a short time before I have to pick up kids or anything of that nature. Go right ahead. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
One other question. I certainly would not be in favor of you going one street off of Cotswold Road into the apartment complex and loop right back out. Because you put an undue burden on those people. You're punching them in there because they only got one way out. Somebody said 180 cars leaving in the morning, they're coming in on that road out there, they'd be forever getting in and out of there.
There's going to be another entrance right there.
Okay. I'm in favor of going all the way straight out there to Cotswold Road.
Okay. Yeah, we certainly can meet with you and discuss that at the end of this meeting. Somebody can sit down with you.
We're happy to table this
Okay.
for the next meeting.
Thank you, sir. Thanks. There's been a motion has there been a motion to table this till the next meeting? Does somebody want to make a motion to hold this? There's been a motion to hold this for the next meeting. Is there a second?
To the next?
To hold it till
Next planning commission?
next to the planning commission meeting. And then me forming a committee and sitting down with them and discussing our options.
What's the date on the next meeting, Joel?
January 15th,
January the 15th.
Yes.
28 days.
Well, that was Joel, but thank you anyway.
That was, we signaled each other.
I'm good.
Thank you, sir. There's been a motion to hold it. Is there a second? Second. There's a second. There's been a motion to hold with a second. Now, this is to sit down and form a committee and discuss bringing it out Cobb's Ford as well as what they have proposed. Is that correct? Is what we're going to sit down and do? Form a committee for that.
I think the whole committee ought to meet.
No, we can. Then certainly an option, and you're welcome to come, and we will form that subcommittee. Is that an option for a subcommittee to be the whole committee, Joel? Or does it have to be would have to have a sunshine law?
Well, I mean, your committee or planning commission, either one, you're both going to have an open meeting. So if you just want to, if it ends up being a work session of the planning commission instead of a committee meeting, it's the same difference.
Then I definitely will be open to having a work session. Okay. Now, there's been a motion and a second to hold this and create a work session. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand.
Did we get a second on that?
We did have a second from the mayor. Opposed, like sign. All right. I take it we will have a work session, and I do not see that work session happening between now and Christmas or New Year's. Do we want to say sometime the first week of January, or does everybody want to get together before then? We will certainly talk to you first week in January. Would that work or not work, or? All right. Do you first Tuesday of next week? You want us? Can we get together then? The 23rd.
You need.
We got to put a notice out. How long does it take?
Standard notice is 7 days.
7 days.
So we will.
Can't do it Christmas Day, and I'm gone the week after. We can do the 29th, or would people be open to that?
No, sir, it's not too late.
Tomorrow.
What day?
No. Have to wait 7 days.
Can't do the 29th.
Just listening to go back and forth as far as times, it looks like it's going to be the second full week in January before anybody could. I take that back. That would actually be the week of your actual hearing. So you're not available the week of the 5th. Is that correct? Okay. Mr. Smith, my recommendation is that you set a time, and the developer cannot meet the week of the 5th. It looks like schedules are compacted. We would need enough time to advertise that, or to at least post it. I would say the Monday the 12th, Tuesday the 13th.
Monday the 12th works, sounds like a winner. You want Monday the 12th? How about Tuesday, though? Tuesday the 13th. Because that works for everybody. At what time? You want to do it 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or what time?
I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, I had two conversations.
Yeah, that's quite all right. Tuesday the 13th at 3 o'clock? Okay, Tuesday the 13th at 3 o'clock. We will have a work session. All parties are encouraged to come. Next thing on the agenda is the miscellaneous items. Before I adjourn, Mr. Duke, do we have any miscellaneous items? We do. Okay. Work session will be here or at Doster? Okay, here. Since we have, you have one? You have one. Pass those. Okay.
Mr. Chair, we have received a request for preliminary, that should read final plat approval. I apologize. Should be final plat approval of the Broadway Group Golson Road subdivision. This item was submitted after your deadline and was then requested that it be approved before the end of the year to meet some requirements of the developer. I stated to them that I would bring this forward for your consideration. It was not on your agenda because it didn't meet the submission deadlines. It would require basically a motion to place it on the agenda and then to consider it.
Okay. So we need a motion now to place this on the agenda?
Yes, sir, for me to even discuss it.
Okay.
If
y'all look over this, and I would need a motion to put this on the agenda, may I have one?
So moved.
All right, the mayor has made a motion to put this on the agenda, and I have a second. All in favor of putting it on the agenda, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. All right.
Yes, sir. Again, you have, as I stated, this final plat for the Broadway Group Golson Road subdivision, which was approved as a preliminary plat, as the Gentry plat number 1 back in May of this year. You recall that group came before you and asked for this 2.5 acre lot, which is shown as lot 1 on this plat, to be approved so they could develop a Dollar General. This is the corner of Golson Road and Highway 82. All improvements that were related to this lot will be covered by the development plan. The plat includes the remainder of the property, which creates 3 additional large lots, large being 32 acres, 52 acres, and 40 acres that would have to be, of course, subdivided later for other development. This property has been zoned, was recommended for rezoning by y'all to B2, was approved by the City Council. Again, it's really just a platting of the lot so that it could be transferred. Other than missing the deadline, there's no reason that we would recommend that you hold this item.
And in your opinion, they've done everything that they need to do to make this go?
Yes, sir. I apologize for.
And you would recommend approval?
Yes, sir. I recommend approval. Any items that we need to have addressed, we still have building permit that has not been obtained and has been released but hasn't been obtained, and they have a development period. So anything we need addressed there, we have other means to get it done.
Thank you, Mr. Duke.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from the planning commission? All in favor of, we need to read this in though, don't we? We have not read it in. Will you read it in for me? Thank you.
Resolution preliminary plat Broadway Group, Golson Road subdivision, May 15, 2014, whereas Larry R. Gentry, Evelyn Rolls, and Marvin Gentry are the owners of Gentry property, and whereas proposed development is located inside the city limits at intersection of Highway 82 West and Golson Road, and whereas a preliminary plat for the same property was approved as a Gentry Plat 1 on May 15, 2014, and whereas all public improvements associated with this plat will be provided under a separate site development plan for Lot 1, and whereas the required city department heads have reviewed and commented on the proposed final plat, I now therefore be it resolved that the City of Prattville Planning Commission hereby gives its favorable review of the submitted final plat of Broadway Group, Golson Road subdivision. I move.
There's been a motion. Is there a second on that? I'll read it in. All right, thank you very much. Is there any discussion on that? All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. All right. Let's move on to the next item, and I take it there is a next item.
Yes, sir. Very quickly, I apologize for the long meeting. I've handed you a copy of the summary document of public meeting that was held back on December the 4th regarding the Martin Luther King Drive Neighborhood Revitalization Plan. I would hope that you get a chance to take a look at this, maybe sometime over the holidays when you got a few idle moments. It was a very successful meeting, in my opinion. We had roughly 35 folks show up at 7 o'clock on a weekday evening to participate. Folks were given basically an overview of the conditions in the area, and they were also presented with 5 different options of possible improvements, looking at areas that need improvements, such as circulation and infrastructure, what might happen with the city-owned property in that neighborhood, improvements to parks and open space, and how to address some challenges in that neighborhood with housing. You can see there that participants were basically given cash, not real cash. The city didn't spring for any real money, but some monopoly money to stick on their project of choice, and you can see the results. I'd be glad to answer any questions now or later about that. When we're done with that plan, we'll be back for you with a full report and some time on the agenda. Mr. Smith, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions from Mr. Duke on this? No questions?
Chairman, I move we adjourn.
We are adjourned.